know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers, and welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. Except this week, we are actually being sponsored by one of our patrons, and we'll get into that more soon. But if you head to patreon.com/punklautopod, for $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio, where last week we did a News of the World I'm Listening, where we talked about the news stories and what we listened to over the last week. We also have a $5 producer tier, where if you are a producer, that means you get your name said on the show every single week, as well as you get to vote in producer-exclusive polls and get some written content like show notes and maybe some reviews occasionally. But let's shout out our producers. So shout out to, let's do Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Shout out to Zach in Oregon. Shout out to Dave Brown, my co-host on Bookenders, as well as the writer of the newsletter Oklahoma Lefty. And shout out to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls, and today's sponsor for this episode. So if you would like to sponsor a future episode, you can sign up for the $10 tier and choose the album we devote an entire episode to. So Jason has been a long-time listener, and he sponsored a few episodes in the past, so I'm always happy whenever he sends something our way. And yeah, This is a record that I don't know if we would have chosen on our own, but maybe we should have considered it earlier. You know, it's one of those cases. We'll get more into that as we really talk about the record and all that kind of stuff. But today's album, it was a Patreon-sponsored episode, and the year that the album came out in was the year 2003. As usual, we like to take a look at what else came out that year. So, Dylan, what is going on in 2003?
So in 2003, quite a bit. There's a couple of bigger tentpole kind of genres going on. The 2000s, I guess, arguably were the last big decade for guitar music in terms of like mainstream success. So you've got big stuff like The Strokes, Room on Fire, and White Stripes' The Elephant. The garage rock post-punk revival thing was pretty big in 2003, and a little more below the surface, you've got Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Fever to Tell, Sea Power's Decline of British Sea Power. You've got your Canadian Interpol, Metric's Old World Underground, Where Are You Now? The Exploding Hearts put out that record, Guitar Romantic, and then that's the band that they all died, right?
Except for one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did an episode on that with Dr. Good Friend Corey. I think you were out of town that week, and so we just did the Exploding Hearts record, which was a fun album. That's actually a really good record.
2003 is a very big year for all things sassy. They're sassy. Proggy, experimental, post-hardcore stuff, kind of adjacent to that. You're going to say something?
I was going to say, these belts are white.
Yeah, these pants are tight. Mars Volta put out Deloused in the Comatorium. Coheed and Cambria did In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth. On the proggy side, on the heavier end of the proggy post-hardcore metalcore thing, Between the Buried and Me put out The Silent Circus. Number 12 Looks Like You put out Put On Your Rosy Red Glasses. Fall of Troy did their self-titled record. That's pretty early for them.
Yeah.
And then on your more noisy, experimental, sassy side, you've got Melt Banana Cellscape, Daughters Canada Songs, Black Eyes self-titled record.
Black like a doll's eyes.
Blood Brothers, Burn Piano Island Burn.
The only Blood Brothers record that I actually listened to, ever.
Huh. I've never listened to any Blood Brothers record.
It's interesting. It's not bad. I don't want to go to it all the time, but it is like the record from them that I have spent time with, and I don't think I've listened to any of their other records.
The Locust put out Plague Soundscapes, and more on an accessible, but honestly really hard to categorize, but certainly huge for us. Bear vs. Shark put out Right Now You're in the Best of Hands. That record is such an odd amalgam of different things.
Yeah, post-hardcore, emo-core, hardcore, all the cores you could think of.
Well, not metalcore.
Yeah, no metalcore, no.
This is also a big year for post-hardcore and emo in general.
Really, the mall is booming in 2003. This whole, like, everything, really everything outside of the garage rock post-punk revival stuff, which you could get to that kind of stuff at the mall. Everything else is you're finding all this stuff in Hot Topic. Everything.
There's some exceptions that I have listed, but we'll get to them later. But yeah, in terms of more straightforward post-hardcore, more accessible post-hardcore, Thrice, The Artist and the Ambulance, that's on a major label.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Thursday, War All the Time. We've got some Funeral for a Friend, some Silverstein. You've got your mall emos. You've got your brand new Deja and Tandu and Fall Out Boys, Take This to Your Grave. There's another Fall Out Boy album that year as well, but I don't know what the deal with that record is. All American Rejects put out their self-titled record. AFI goes mainstream with Sing the Sorrow. Dashboard and Confessional, I put them in the mall emo category, though honestly, their Dashboard maybe straddles the line. You would definitely find their stuff in the mall, but it's like PacSun emo.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very PacSun. You'd get your Jack's Mannequin records next to your Dashboard Confessionals,
which sits very comfortably next to something like Yellow Card's Ocean Avenue. Though I would maybe categorize Yellow Card more as a pop punk band, which on that front, Blink-182's self-titled record, the Atari So Long Astoria.
Don't Blink-182 have like several self-titled records?
No, that's just the one.
I thought they did one when they came back.
But it's like their fourth record or something.
Yeah. Lazy.
What do you expect? We ran out of dick jokes. The Offspring put out Splinter.
Yeah.
Where's that one stand, Offspring Defender?
That one it's an okay record. It's trying to be like a throwback in some ways. Like there are some songs on that record that do feel like older Offspring songs I think they're trying to do something like Ixnay on that record, but I do think it has some dumb shit on it too. I mean, it is an Offspring record, and there's dumb stuff on everything. But let me see. I'm gonna pull it up really quick and see what's on Splinter. I listened to it maybe like 2 years ago. What was the single? It was Can't Get My Head Around You. I think that was the single. Actually, looking at it, this might be one of the less dumb records of the 2000s that they did. Because there's some stuff that I don't know off the top of my head by the song title, but yeah, like I said, I think this is them trying to be like, let's try and get some of our punk cred back, because they had just done Conspiracy of One, which half that record's a joke record. So.
Similar to pop punk, we've got some pretty big skate punky stuff. The Distillers put out Coral Fang. NoFX put out War on Errorism. We are in the Rock Against Bush era.
Oh, yeah. And our album definitely reflects that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2003. It's the
war in Iraq.
The war on Iraq. The invasion of Iraq.
Yep.
Still paying the price. And,
yeah.
Not getting better.
Yeah, 23 years later, it's still very relevant, sadly.
George is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's still time. So is Condi.
Yeah. They were both invited to the White House. I don't want to talk about politics now. I get too much of that work. So.
Metalcore is just mainstream.
I was going to say, this stuff is barely metalcore, too. Yeah. The ones here.
I mean, I could have gotten deeper, but I was just getting too into the weeds on these. But Avenged Sevenfold, Waking the Fallen, I would say still a metalcore band at this point. It's fairly early for them.
Which one is that one? I'm trying to imagine the cover. Okay, it's the first time they used the bat wing logo, bat skull logo thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, I always hated that first Avenged Sevenfold, because it just didn't sound good. I just hated how they sounded. So, like, there's never been a period in my life where I gave a single fuck about Avenged Sevenfold.
Lamb of God put out As the Palaces Burn. Trivium put out Ember to Inferno.
Is that the Metallica one, or is that later?
That's early. That's actually very early for Trivium.
So it might be more standard metalcore.
Yeah. And Poison the Well, You Come Before You. You Come Before You. I don't know why I read that name. Weird.
I don't even know how you said that. You came up before, huh?
Poison of the well.
Oh my God.
I'm screwed up. As I lay dying, put out frail words collapse.
Yep. The
Ooh.
first one I bought. Yeah. I think I only ever bought 2 albums by them.
Clicky drums.
Hey, that Jordan Mancino. He could play well, but like, man, they triggered the fuck out of those things.
Malasco drums.
Yep, it is. It is a Malasco drum. Yeah.
A guy made a name for himself as just triggered drum sounds.
It must have been proprietary. Like, he came up with the sounds that it made. I don't know. Because you would see those credited everywhere on metalcore records from, like, 2000 to 2005. And then after that, they're like, we all figured out how to do it where it doesn't sound so clicky.
Is there any way to get rid of that clicking sound?
What is this, a psychobilly band?
Every Time I Die, put out Hot Damn.
Their southern rock record.
They were early to that.
They set the trend. And they weren't even from the South.
Yeah, but they're from Buffalo.
I mean, yeah, it's
That's
the south of New York. It's rural.
A little bit of true screamo to mention. There's plenty more, but Envy put out A Dead Sinking Story. Hot Cross put out Cryonics. There's an Off Minor record. There's plenty more of the true screamo, your underground stuff. And a little taste. Again, there's much, much more. This is really kind of like the peak of that time period, of that sound, one of the peak years. We've got some orgcore. Against Me as the Eternal Cowboy came out that year. Lawrence
I like that one.
Greatest Story Ever Told came out that year. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too, yeah.
I'm putting them in this category, though they never fully fit. And they're on their way out of it, truly. But Alkaline Trio put out Good Morning.
I never know what to put Alkaline Trio. Like,
They just have the slapstick family tree thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of get them in there, in that little pocket. Yeah, I mean, even those first couple records were definitely crunchier, so they kind of fit in that sound. But people always wanted to tag them emo, too, and that never felt like 100% right, either. Especially what emo was when they were around.
Yeah.
Like, kicking off. And then...
Yeah, it was like emo in the sense that Dear You by Jawbreaker is emo.
Yeah. Yeah. By, like, 98, emo is, like, such a different thing. Yeah.
The Bronx put out The Bronx, but every Bronx record is called The Bronx.
Yeah, they're numbered. They number theirs.
This is the one with the blood and the fangs.
I think it's the first.
Is it the first? Okay.
I
don't know
is.
The Bronx well enough.
They're more hardcore, too, than anything. But they're like that fast-paced kind of hardcore, like the more Painted Black sounding than you'd think.
Yeah.
But you don't really have much regular hardcore.
No, I just kind of had to cap myself here on these notes. Though, as I was looking, I wasn't really seeing very many other trends for hardcore. There's definitely like the beatdown and tough guy type stuff, but there kind of always is.
Yeah.
But 03, I think you could get into... I mean, Give Up the Ghost, We're Down Till We're Underground.
Yeah, that's a big record.
That would probably be one of the other big dominating sounds. So your melodic hardcore, there's a Rise Against record. There's just Exit English by Strike Anywhere, Turn It Around by Comeback Kid. That would be the other pant leg of hardcore going on at this time. Suicide File.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through. I have like a little bit of a Google sheet with some stuff that I have by year, and I like hardcore wise, I don't even have a lot of stuff here, so that is interesting. Yeah, Most Precious Blood, Our Lady of Annihilation that year.
CBA by Painted Black was that year as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Shai Hulud, That Within Blood, Ill Tempered. Stretch Armstrong did Engage. That record's not very good though. Symphony of Peril. That's more metalcore though. That's the first one.
Yeah.
Metalcore is definitely the more dominant sound at the time.
Yeah. You've got your Christian stuff. I mean, you mentioned Stretch Armstrong. There's Figure 4. They put out.
We've got some X-Disciple X. The Revelation was released that year. Zao did All Else Failed, the re-recorded version of their first album. Zombie Apocalypse is a Spark of Life. Yeah, there's some stuff in hardcore. But yeah, it is more like straight ahead hardcore was not the dominant sound. It was more underground than even this stuff. This stuff you get at the mall and see on MTV pretty regularly.
Life in Your Way put out their first record that year. They always surprise me at how far back they go, because I feel like nobody cared about them until they were about to break up.
Yeah. They became like a weird kind of hype band towards the
it was
end.
That second to last record, the 2007 one, is where they seem to get the most talk. Which that's the Solid State one.
Yeah, they did because they were on smaller labels before that.
Yeah, Indianola.
Yeah. Indianola
Nobody
is a cool.
knows Indianola bands.
Not really.
Terrace.
Shockwave. That's the only one I can really ever think of that was on Indianola.
Actually, you know who? I think Indianola was actually a feeder label, because they had A Day to Remember, Across 5 Aprils, Casey Jones. Actually, quite a few names,
Yeah.
Weirdly.
But you don't think of them as being Indianola bands. You think of
No.
them as their own thing or different labels entirely.
Yeah, Evergreen Terrace was... Were they a Ferret band?
Evergreen Terrace was on like every label because it was like they put out a record and nobody wanted to do a second one by them. I think Face Down might have been the only one that did more than one by them, but
Eulogy, Hand of Hope,
yep.
Alvarin, Metal Blade.
Yeah.
Multiple Metal Blade records.
That one of those is probably the covers album too.
But then Rise.
Right. No, they managed to get on Rise. Wow.
They were on every label.
Yeah, like I said, they were nobody's favorite band, and they just kind of like were good. They were always on shows. You'd always see them on flyers, and like the one time I saw them was that like mega show it was As I Lay Dying, Dillinger Escape Plan, Still Remains, August Burns Red. It was stacked. It was like two shows combined to one. Whitechapel, like very early Whitechapel, like this was in Knoxville when I saw them, so they might have actually still been a Tennessee band only. There's more on that show. It was like a 7-8 band show, and they were all pretty well known bands at the time. Evergreen Terrace did not fit that show because they didn't look like anyone else. They kind of they looked like 90s hardcore guys, not 2000s skinny jeans, swoop hair, gauges like 99% of that audience was. Well, we don't have an almost pick section here because this was a sponsored episode, so we didn't really have many input. It was just, here's what you're talking about. It's like, that's fine. Totally fine. So that Jason doesn't go the Dave route and send us a whole list of options to choose from. He's just like, I want you to talk about this album. So that is what we're doing today. So he selected us to discuss Nightmares by From Ashes Rise. Quick stats on the band. From Portland, Oregon. Kind of. We'll get into that. They formed in 1997, and they played neo-crust / hardcore, and they released this album October 14th, 2003 on Jade Tree Records. This is the band's third and final studio album, and the personnel is Billy Davis on bass, Dave Atchison on drums, Brad Boatwright on guitar and vocals, and John Wilkerson on guitar and vocals as well. The record is produced and engineered by Matt Bales, who also plays piano on the song Black Granite. So normally this is where I ask you or you ask me, why did we choose it? But we didn't choose it. So I did ask Jason to say, to give us some thoughts on why he selected it for us. So I'll just read what he wrote here for us. So initially I asked, why did you choose this From Ashes Rise album? And his response is, well, Dylan ruined all of my you both don't listen to any hardcore on a hardcore podcast jokes by choosing Sick of It All last week. So
I do listen to hardcore.
I listen to more hardcore than you. You just don't ever
you
want
do.
to talk about it. But anyway, he goes on. Personally, I chose it as I've gotten older. My music choices have gotten heavier, which I think goes against the norm, even in punk, where a lot of people start finding more chill music to listen to. I listen to this because I'm still pissed off, and with the state of the world, we all need albums like this that shares the same type of pissed offness. I'm not a huge fan of D-Beat because the genre itself can get very samey, album to album. This one doesn't. There are a lot of interesting melodic parts and tempo changes. However, I sometimes wonder if I pick up on those things only because I listen to it often. So I guess we could do our kind of like previous experience with From Ashes Rise. So what background do you have with this band?
I guess officially none.
Zero.
I don't know that I've ever actually listened to a From Ashes Rise record. I mean, I could have hazarded a guess at what they sound like, but I don't know that I would have exactly put my finger on it. I would know generally what they sound like, that they're a D-Beat band. But yeah, I don't know that I could have told you what particular variety of D-Beat they were.
Well, do you have anything on Crust in general you'd like to say as far as like your experience with the genre?
I mean, Crust, Neo-Crust, D-Beat, Thrashcore, all of that stuff I feel like overlaps and runs together, and I've dabbled in kind of all of it over the years, and certainly have my favorites like Cursed or Catharsis.
And it's funny because neither one of those I feel like you would call like straight ahead Crust either.
No, not really.
They've Crust elements in their sound, but yeah.
Yeah, Neo-Crust as a subgenre. I've listened to some His Hero Is Gone and Tragedy.
We did an episode on Tragedy.
That's the stuff I'm most familiar with. I've heard some Fall of a Fraffa.
Yeah.
And
what's the other band that's like the same people doing the same thing? I can't remember their name.
Yeah, they're always, it's like, we're in like 4 bands that sound the same.
Yeah.
It's Blackstorm?
No, there's like one. It's like identical. It looks like the exact same band. Let's see.
Farewell to Arms?
Let's see. Efrefra. Did not know they were British. Interesting. Let's see. Not sure. Maybe it's something that Alex Bradshaw's in, and I just can't think of what it is at the moment. But that was a little dead end there. Might edit that out.
It's a sound that I've heard off and on over the years. I've listened to Oathbreaker records. I've listened to Jungbluth. I think like the D-Beat Neo-Crust stuff, I probably get the least mileage out of from the related categories.
Downfall of Gaia. That's who I was thinking of. Fall of Frafra. Anyway, continue.
Well, Downfall of Gaia almost had like a sludge element too.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're even like, they're German, so they're not even like the same people. It's just their artwork was just very similar. I think and they were putting stuff out around the same time. But they were a similar, like Last FM, similar artist, First Page band. So
yeah. I would say the stuff that's maybe closer to, and I don't even know. Do people generally? I don't know how closely people categorize like thrashcore and D-Beat and Crust. I mean, D-Beat, I know it's got to have the D-Beat. That's why it's called that. But like the Crust, the Neo-Crust, thrashcore stuff, like would a Dead in the Dirt be considered?
They're more like grindy, power violency
from Cursed, or I don't know. I guess I would say in terms of like black and white Xerox album art, I opt more for like the grind and power violence type of stuff, like Drop Dead and even like Combat Wounded Veteran, Infest, that side of things, more than I go for like We Eat Out of Dumpsters.
Get your butt flaps and backs. Get your butt flaps and back. Oh my god! It's like a tongue twister. back patches. Your butt flaps and back patches aren't ready. Yeah, that was wow. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
How much expired food can a freakin' eat?
Yeah. I would say crust is probably the genre that might have the highest amount of freegans in it. Yeah, crust is a genre that it's interesting. You know, it spins out of anarcho-punk. Like, that's, you know, Crass is like the beginning of it, and then like it's like D-Beats after that, and then crust I think is after that. And then even Neocrust is its own kind of thing too, because like this doesn't sound that much like Amoebics or that kind of stuff, or Nausea. I mean, maybe a little like Nausea, but yeah, Neocrust is like its own harder thing. It feels like than those other ones, because crust is like a punk subgenre, but it's like Neocrust is more like a hardcore subgenre. I have listened to some from Ashes Rise. That is a hard name to say in the context of a sentence, because from being in there is like, oh, that's not where that word goes. But yeah, I've listened to the very first record a few times. I've probably heard this record in the past as well. Maybe not everything from the band, but I've heard a couple records from them. And then, yeah, I've spent some time with the other crust stuff like Tragedy and from His Hero's Gone. And I have this thing where I always have like one active crust band that I'm listening to. And usually it's like they exist for like a record or two, and then they just kind of fade away. And the one that has kind of like been keeping my attention the most in the recent years is that French band called Bombardment. And they have like, they lean a little more D-Beat than specifically crust, but that is kind of like the one that I am gravitating towards currently. But yeah, I do always have like one. The one that I got into the biggest first was the Holy Mountain. I really got into that band. You know, they had a couple records on No Idea, and I always thought that they sounded kind of like a crust version of like Mastodon at the time, you know, what Mastodon sounded like back then. So that was my gateway into crust. And I probably do listen to more crust than you do, because you tend, like you said, that noisy, loud, fast stuff that's the stuff I don't listen to as much.
Or so, yeah, like grind and like
grind adjacent. Yeah.
Or yeah, if I'm going for heavier music, like I've probably tended towards just kind of checking out like the classics of death metal that I've, you know, never listened to.
Yeah, and grind too comes from crust and anarcho-punk, because it was like an explicitly political genre early on, and crust is in general. Crust is a very political genre.
Arguably, grindcore, if you make it not political, depending on how heavy it is, I would even say it's just something else at that point. I think grind as a genre really needs to stay true to that anarcho kind of basis.
I mean, you have like your porno grind and your gore grind, but like that's...
Yeah. I'm not listening to that.
No, I don't. Because that's where like the piggy vocals come in the most, especially gore grind. Gore grind loves those like real low pig vocals that just, God, it's atrocious. You hear it in some grind, but like I think gore grind, that's where they really do it.
I mean, gore grind arguably could be considered political if they're doing it in like a carcass way.
Yeah, who were political,
like,
yeah.
Or like a who am I thinking of? Cattle Decapitation, which they're more of a technical death metal band, but
yeah, very tech deathy with some grind elements. Yeah, they're also like vegan hardcore,
yeah,
vegan stuff. So very animal rights centric. A lot of grind is though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've spent some time with From Ashes Rise, definitely. Well, okay, we've been talking all about crust and stuff that's crust adjacent. What in 2003 kind of like lives in this like loose assemblage of different sounds?
So yeah, your closest comparisons, I would say Cursed 1 comes out. That's a massive record, a very important band, and very close to this From Ashes Rise record. There's a Death Threat record, Consider It War, Death Threat being another Memphis band, His Hero's Gone, Tragedy members. That's like the one-to-one also ran, probably. There's a Dysphere record, if you want to go more deep eat, Misanthropic Generation. Martyr Dodd put out their self-titled record. That's getting into like even more into the Blackened Crust thing than Cursed. Black in the Skies put out their self-titled record. That is members of Catharsis.
Is it?
Greensboro band.
Oh,
it might be one member of Catharsis.
Yeah, let's see if I can find it. Black in the Skies.
It's Steph.
Steph Teleski, who
Guitar.
was okay. Might be early guitar.
Actually, he's later.
When?
Later Catharsis. He's from Umlaut.
Yeah, Umlaut. Yeah, and Requiem, which is was the immediate follow up too. And Requiem rules.
So Catharsis adjacent, not actually post Catharsis. I don't know the other guys in the band. They're just listed by first name, so I don't know who they were or where they came from. But I came across that and I was like, why do I know that name? And then I went and looked. I was like, oh, Greensboro band. Yeah. If you want to get more out there, maybe not the closest comparisons, but generally what's going on in Crust and D-Beat, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. But names that I recognize, like Caustic Christ, Ass Chapel, Severed Head of State, Cripple Bastards, F-, Born Dead is more of like a crust punk band, members of Abrupt. There was some interesting stuff I wasn't familiar with, but like it had members in common with other bands that I did know. There's a band called Cold Sweat that I think has members of like Akimbo and Iron Lung. That I thought that record looked interesting. More thrashcore, I think. And there's a record from a band called Cut the Shit that is a Boston band, was a Boston band with Andrew from Boston Strangler and Failures. Confines.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that kind of gives me an idea. Yeah, that is a little bit more like the fastcore kind of stuff, yeah. Yeah, it's like, a lot of the stuff you mentioned here, it's like, it's not necessarily all crust, but it is very, they could split a bill, and it would be, crust fans would dig it, you know? Yeah. Well, this is very funny. We're talking about all this, like, crust stuff, and then we have to think about that this record came out on J Tree Records.
Yeah.
Which was weird. It was weird. It was weird at the time. It's weird now, still to think about. But J Tree in 2003, big year. We have Exit English by Strike Anywhere. We have CVA by Painted Black. We have Cheap Shots and Youth Anthems by Kid Dynamite. That's that compilation, because they were already done by this point. We have The Instinct by Denali. And then we have records from Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, These Arms Are Snakes, Joan of Arc, Esther Drang, Statistics, and a band called CEX. I assume it's pronounced sex, but no other crust on here. I mean, yeah, you got your Painted Black in here. That's kind of your closest as far as that. And then, Strike Anywhere, more orgcore, but also a little melodic hardcore to their sound, too. But there's, Denali's, like, pretty music. And Joan of Arc's emo, and, a lot of different stuff. I did find that Matt Bales, the producer of this record, in 2003, also worked on albums by These Arms Are Snakes, it's an EP. It's not a full length, but it's like a 12-inch. But he also did Burnt by the Sun, Benton Falls, who's like a Deep Elm band. Sean Smith solo record. He was a member of the Twilight Singers. A Seattle punk band called The Hits, and an experimental band called Me Infecto. So Matt Bales was making a little bit of a name for himself. I think he becomes a bigger name later, but at this time he's working on some stuff.
Matt Bales, at this point,
I think he goes on to be bigger, like a lot bigger.
I mean, he would have been an engineer on a lot of grunge records in the mid-90s, like assistant engineer on a lot of stuff. I mean, he'd worked on Around the Fur by Deftones in 97, but he'd done the Botch stuff. He had done American Nervosa in 98 by Botch, and We Are the Romans in 99, Celestial by Isis.
Yeah, I got all that stuff later.
Okay. I was going to say, like, Matt Bales is a known quantity at this point.
Yeah, but 2003, this is what he was doing. Yeah, this stuff.
No, that stuff's earlier.
I know. Okay. The stuff I was talking about was the 2003 stuff. I was saying he goes on to do even bigger things later too. But yeah.
Days and nights.
The story. So, initially formed in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know what was going on in Nashville or just in Tennessee in general. Like, I think some of them are from like Murfreesboro, especially like specifically where some of them are from. But so many crust bands came. Some of the biggest, most important crust bands all came from Tennessee from this time period. So they originally formed in 97 with drummer Dave Etchison and guitarist Brad Boatwright. And they originally played with guitarist Jeff Andrews and bassist Jason Piercy and vocalist Marshall Purdue. And not long after, Jeff Andrews would quit the band and would be replaced by another second guitarist, John Wilkerson. This lineup would record their 1997 self-titled demo cassette, and they toured the East Coast until vocalist Marshall Purdue would quit the band, leaving Brad Boatwright and John Wilkerson sharing vocal duties. They would then record their first 7-inch, Fragments of a Fallen Sky, on Clean Plate in 1998, and the band would go on their first national tour, and Jason Piercy would quit the band in the middle of the tour, leaving them to finish without a bassist. They would then bring in bassist Billy Davis to record on their 7-inch Life and Death, which was released on Partners in Crime in 99. Billy got his start playing in the Tennessee bands Face Down, Cop Out, and Death Threat, so we mentioned them earlier. Billy would leave Tennessee to go live in Portland, Oregon, and form the band Tragedy. He would be replaced by bassist Ryan Tietzen. They followed this with the studio album Concrete and Steel in 2000. Sometimes it's a self-titled. It's one of those records that's got different names. It came out on the Great American Steak Religion, which was like not a real name of a record label, but they eventually did become a real record label. They would change their name to Witch Hunt, and then they would release the second From Ashes Rise record, Silence, in 2001. Ryan Tietzen would quit the band, and Billy Davis would rejoin, and he would play on their split with the Swedish crust band Victims in 2003, same year as this, which was released on Havoc Records. And Billy was still living in Portland, and the rest of the band was still living in Tennessee at the time. So basically, it became impossible for them to not practice and write together without Billy around. So the rest of the whole band just moved to Portland. So I believe it's like His Hero's Gone, Tragedy, and From Ashes Rise are all from like the same like Nashville scene. And then a lot of them all went to Portland. I don't know if all His Hero Gone guys went to Portland too, but yeah, it's funny. They all just were like, okay, let's go. Which crust feels like a Portland genre anyway. Like a city that would hold crust bands is Portland.
Yeah, it feels like they should have been from there all along.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, for some reason, there's all these neo crust bands from Tennessee. Well, it's like Catharsis being from, North Carolina. Greensboro. It's just like nobody knows what Greensboro is. Greensboro
Asheville.
Is nothing.
Asheville had a lot of crust bands.
But that makes sense.
Yeah, because Asheville is very much a Portland coded city. It's a keep so and so weird city. It's like what Austin used to be. It's what Portland, Maine is like. Apparently, it's very similar to that.
Wilmington, North Carolina, even would have made more sense.
Yeah, that's like the beach version of it. It's a different kind of thing, but yeah. It is funny, yeah. But, Chattanooga's got a weird, like, dirt punk scene there, too.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte had its dirt punk.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's something about, like, southern states that do have a slight undercurrent of this kind of stuff, which is funny. It's not usually where you typically think of it popping off, though.
Yeah, but I just don't think of Tennessee having any keep so-and-so weird cities.
No, because it was a touristy town forever.
Like Nashville, not at all. Memphis, I can see, because Memphis is very rough.
Memphis is just a poor city.
Yeah.
And that's just where a lot of, like, old stuff came from, like the Sun records and all that kind of stuff. But Elvis, of course. But yeah, so From Ashes Rise, along with His Hero's Gone and Tragedy, they helped shape the neo-crust sound, which was considered a more extreme version of what originally began with the anarcho-punk bands in the UK. We did an episode on the the first Drop Dead self-titled. They have like several. Me and Dr. Goodfriend Corey as well. Another time he was filling in. And we did that record, and I kept calling it like crust, and then he kept saying like, it's not crust. Crust is more metal. And I was like, crust comes from anarcho-punk, though. Like, it's like taking metal elements. There was a little debate on whether or not Drop Dead is crust. I don't think they're actually crust now, but I do think they were influential on crust. Like, I think they were influential on From Ashes Rise and those other crust bands. So it's like a weird, like, they're not technically part of that scene, but also inspired that scene. It's very weird. They're more like Gauze, who's another one like that too. It's just not a crust band, but inspires crust.
I mean, as evidenced by my just throwing all of this shit in the same bucket already on this show, I think people try to parse a lot of this stuff down too much. I don't know why this style... I don't know why any genre that emphasizes speed and heaviness gets splintered off into so many subgenres. But it always does. And everybody has a different word for different things. And it's just like power violence, thrashcore, emo violence, grindcore, DB, crust, neo-crust. Like, are these things that different? That different? Blackened crust. You know, where does Nails fit? You know?
Yeah.
Playing a thrashcore version of Entombed. You know? Like, it's...
Well, there's like, they keep trying to do it. Like, now there's stenchcore, which is just like, that's not a thing. Stop pretending it's a thing. It's not a thing. And they're just like, it's even more extreme crust. It's like, who cares? Shut up.
I think if you use the word stenchcore seriously at all, you are an oogle.
You're an egg punk. Yeah, it is funny. Yeah, you're right. It is one of those things where it's like, why are we parsing it down so much? I mean, I can understand maybe putting some like movements and like specific scenes, because a lot of the original crust is all British. Like, most of that is all British. So like, I get maybe wanting to make a distinction between that version of crust and this version of crust, but they just call it neo crust. It does give you an idea that there's something different about this version. But yeah, I mean, it's all the same butt flaps at all the shows. Like, it's the same crowd. You go to all of these shows, it's the same kind of people at all of these shows.
You will see an ass suck patch.
At all of them. Every single show will have an ass suck patch somewhere. You will see a butt flap on someone at every single one of these shows. So it's... Yeah, I mean, that's just what music nerds do. We just talk about genres, and we start narrowing things down. We love a classification. we gotta put everything in a little box, and we get a little touchy whenever that's not what box I put them in. I put them in a different box, you know. I mean, it's part of the fun of it. It is, you know, just an entertainment thing. I do try and I have mentioned before, I want to try and like just be a little bit more loose with my genres anyway. In general, I want to just use the simplest, easiest term, because it's just like everybody has such an idea of what things are. It's just like, well,
yeah. I mean, I think it can be useful at a point in time, because I think that's really what you're doing with a lot of alternative music in general, is just saying, this is just generally where we put all of the alternative music. You know, it's like alternative rock and indie rock. And now you have people being like, there's definable traits of indie rock. It's like, there's not actually definable traits of indie rock.
There was at one point.
There was when it was Chapel Hill.
When it was just like 25 bands. Yeah.
But, and then now you have people going back and trying to like tag records from the early 80s as indie rock. It's like, that term did not exist. There was no indie rock. Alternative rock did not even exist.
No, it was college rock. Like, that's what they called it. Because it was just like the kind of music you heard on college radio stations. Because it's like, yeah, because you didn't have to have like special licenses to like get this stuff on the air. People just sent you the records. Play it, please. You know.
So I can see the usefulness of neocrust as a term, because it does particularly refer to this time period, especially this late 90s, early 2000s sort of restructuring of crust, or really just like putting a name to a group of bands that have advanced a genre musically, but come from a scene.
Yeah, these all came from Tennessee. The three bands who established Neocrust are all originally Tennessee people. So it's like, I think Tragedy may have formed in Portland, but it is still like, I can't remember my research on that Tragedy episode, but still, yeah, it is, it's a specific scene. And Neocrust also was like, oh, this is what crust is now. It just kind of defined what crust was going to be in the 2000s.
Well, But it doesn't completely, because it doesn't supplant the already existing version of crust, because there's plenty of that too.
Yeah. I think as far as U.S. crust goes, though, there's a lot more that is very inspired by this brand of crust. I don't know what it is about crust, the genre, that inspires so much discussion about what is crust, too. It is funny that this happens every time we touch on anything adjacent. But
I don't know.
I don't know why it inspires so much more debate than some other genres do, but I guess hardcore. Well, we get that a little bit with like pop punk, hardcore, melodic hardcore, not regular hardcore, melodic hardcore, skate punk. Like those three kind of have a lot of overlap too, and it's of discussion. But yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, they've done records. They've already been around for a minute. They've moved to Portland. They do sign to J Tree Records, who were, like we said at the time, most known for releasing albums by Lifetime, The Promise Ring, and Just to Brazil. The band didn't understand why J Tree wanted to sign them, considering they didn't have anyone else like From Ashes Rise on the label. And then they got negative feedback for signing with a label that they considered were not DIY. From Ashes Rise, DIY band, and they lose some of that cred by signing to, J Tree's not DIY. Never mind the fact that they were an independent record label run by just two dudes. They just had I think they just got lucky and had some hits that were able to fund a label,
I think J Tree has been viewed as a sellout label multiple times. Wasn't there somebody else that signed to J Tree and it was like, oh, you're selling out, going to Jade Tree.
When we covered, maybe? What?
I feel like there was something we talked about. I don't remember what it was.
Was it the Lifetime record? Was people like, what are you doing on Jade? But no, Lifetime
that might have been the one.
But Lifetime one didn't have, Jade Tree didn't have much by the time that first Lifetime came out. Like, Swizz was on the label. It wasn't. Yeah, I know what you mean. There is a point where Jade Tree got sold to someone, but then when they brought it back, those guys bought it back. Yeah, and it was just funny because they were like, oh, you're not on a DIY thing anymore. And it was, even the guys in the band were like, it is still a DIY label. They just have more recognition. They just have money. They wound up making money on their records. Probably because of Lifetime. So they go into the studio with Matt Bales. He was in Minus the Bear already at this point. He would leave later, but he was already like known for just being the guy from Minus the Bear. And they recorded it at the studio Litho in Seattle, Washington in May and June of 2003. And then Matt Bales, he got his start working as an assistant engineer on albums by Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Deftones. So yeah, he was basically doing assistant work on those. And then he began producing stuff on his own. And he did records for Botch, Isis, Mastodon, the Blood Brothers, and my personal favorite, always got to throw one of these out here, Raft of Dead Monkeys. But the album was released on cassette in Macedonia on Fuck Yoga Records. And then it would get reissued 1 year later on Havoc Records. To this date, this is still their final studio album. We'll do the album art. It is a red and black cover. It looks like a collage sort of thing. It looks like some priests and a Jesus in the background. And yeah, lyrically, this album deals a lot with similar crust subjects like death, destruction, war. But like we said, this came out in 2003 and is definitely inspired by the post 9/11 war on terrorism as well as the war in Iraq. And we've already been in Afghanistan for a while by this point. So yeah, this is, like we said, Rock Against Bush era, except the bands that actually kind of meant what they were saying. It was the crust bands. So, what did you think of this record?
I had a lot of fun listening to it. I really enjoyed it. I'm surprised I've never heard it before, that I've just never listened to any of their albums before, because this is the kind of stuff I like. I mean, and this is one of the big bands of that sound. Just haven't gotten there. And I would say this record is mostly a blur, but in a good way.
You sent me a text, yesterday? Where you said, urge to super kick rising. And I was like, what? Is something going on at work? And what did you say?
So, oh, no, I'm just listening to this From Ashes Rise record.
Which didn't get in my head. And I was like, okay, Shawn Michaels equals punk rock. Bret Hart equals metal. And it made sense in my head. I don't know why. It's a little more technical, a little more. But then I was like, wait.
It works. I mean, Sean, can get real sloppy, and Brett can be a little boring to watch sometimes.
But then I thought about it more, and then I was like, no, actually, they're both metal genres. It's just Sean is glam / hair, and Brett is prog. Yeah. Brett is prog.
You think Brett is prog rock? You don't think he's like speed metal?
No, he would have to wrestle fast then.
Yeah. There's no working the ankle, working the knee.
No.
Yeah. Technical. Yeah, I guess prog's the only thing that really works.
Yeah. Let's see. I really enjoyed the record. Like, I was already familiar with the band. I'd heard a couple of their records in the past. This one in particular, I'd already heard it before, so it wasn't new to me. So I knew what I was getting into going into this record. But when I listened to it, I'm like, fuck yes, is how I feel when I listen to records like this, because I don't actually listen to a ton of crust, but when I get a record that I like, it is so much fun. I told you we should get a counter on how many pick scrapes are on this record, because there are so many pick scrapes all over this thing, and it gets me every time. Like, I'm giddy when I hear a pick scrape on this album. It's funny to think of a record like this as being fun, but I have so much fun when I listen to this record. It's pissed off music, like Jason said. It is something to listen to when you are pissed off. And maybe that was part of why I enjoyed it so much. There's a little catharsis going on here. Not the band, the actual word. A little catharsis going on here because you're getting this like emotional release from this like fast, aggressive music that is heavy and sounds heavy. Like, it's a very heavy sounding record. But I had a blast listening to it. It's got the right energy there. They do enough tempo changes and mood changes. Like, Jason did point that out, as far as being like there are tempo changes and like weird guitar parts. And I do hear those things on here, because there are like sludgy elements on here. There's a couple songs that start off with like sludge intros, and then of course you pick scrape, and then you pick up the pace and you play it really fast. The pick scrape really is a cheat code to get you from different parts. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
You're just like, how do we put this fast part and the slow part together? Put a pick scrape there.
I've never been good at pick scrapes. I can't do it. I don't know why. I don't know if I don't have the right gauge strings, the right weight pick, the right gain settings on my amps. Every pick scrape I've ever attempted just doesn't work.
That's so funny, because like, you think they'd be easy, but if they were easy to do well, you'd hear them more, and you don't really hear them that often. There's some bands who do it.
It's real easy to just it's gotta be the right tone to be really satisfying.
Yeah, you do sometimes run into the slow pick scrape, where you're going like all the way up the neck for it. It's like, yeah, okay, that you hear. You probably hear that more commonly.
That's when you're going from a fast part to a slow part. There's like a break, and then you.
Yeah. The fast pick scrape. It's just like it's like a TIE fighter flying by or something, and it just screaming by you as it happens. So you consider you mentioned like sameness in a good way, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little more.
I mean, I wouldn't say sameness. There is variety to the record, but I think in terms of like the listening experience, I didn't feel the need to look for that variety. I didn't feel like I wanted to stay in those slower riffs or those tempo changes, or, I didn't like, I was enjoyed them as they happened and as everything went by on this record, but I think like the overall energy is this continuous driving force to it. And it's definitely the kind of record, and it's what I want from this style of music, to be able to put it on and be sucked into it and not really have to try to keep track of anything that's happening. Like it's that kind of hardcore that does not require very much mental energy from you to get its point across. Like, it's more of a record that you feel than a record that you hear or think about. There's no armchair, there's no like, what he's doing here is, it's just like,
yeah,
go fast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that does make sense. What you're saying there. You're right. It is one that you don't really have to like sit there and analyze as far as like, oh yes, the song structure on this particular track. It's like, no, you don't. They all kind of have the same song structure. That is kind of the staple of the genre. Is you do these things. You don't always have to have a D beat in every song, but you need to have some D beats on your record. There's a pseudo formula. There's like a handful of different ways to write a song like these songs. You got to start with the slow, sludgy part, then you pick up the pace, and then maybe you can come back to the slow, sludgy part. Or then maybe the song will just be like, oh, we started fast right away. Like, there's no intro to it. It just kind of like picks up right away. And then we do like a breakdown sort of thing. Or we change our tempo, and it's not even like a super slowed down thing, but it is just like a slightly different kind of beat that they throw in there. I do appreciate that it's not just one thing. There is a particular type of hardcore it's probably more inspired by the earliest waves of hardcore, that really fast paced kind of stuff. That's just, it's kind of like a 3-chord song, and they just play a super short, fast song and they don't change parts very often. You have a verse and a chorus, and then you might do a repeat of those, and that's kind of it. This kind of does have more like pieces and parts to it. And it's kind of like the same, like 4 different parts you can kind of reconfigure in different ways, but it was a fun experience listening to again. Like I said, I'm familiar with the album already and familiar with this band, but I did have a good time. Like when I was making notes of the songs in particular, where I was kind of forcing myself to pay more attention to what's happening, that's when I feel like you do appreciate a little bit more of like the structure of the song. Especially when some of those like weird guitar parts come in, where it's just like, it's not a very loud part of the mix. It's like kind of buried in places. There are some cool parts on here though, where you'll listen to it. And they do this a lot of times, where it'll be like one guitar is on the left channel only. And they'll be doing like an intro riff. They'll be like that. You probably won't hear any bass, but you'll hear the drums going. And that'll be like your intro. And then you'll hear another guitar coming in to the right channel, but it's actually being on both channels. You can hear. So what you're hearing is one guitar on both channels and then one guitar only in the left channel. And so then like that gives a little bit more of a fuller sound. And then they do the thing where then they switch the guitar that was only in the left channel to both channels, and then it just all like snaps into place. It's like you're putting something together and everything literally just clicked right at the exact moment, and it just like hits, and it just, you feel it like it's building. They're building the intro to the song. And then once it finally hits into like, all right, everything's firing on all cylinders, it just shotgun blasts you in the face with just a killer song that just like speeds by too. And yeah, I just love some of the songs on this record that it just kicks ass. It's just an ass kicking record is really what it is,
Yeah. The crust and the fastcore, thrashcore kind of stuff that I like, I think does for me what like New York hardcore does for other people. Like it's that feeling thing. It's that, and maybe it's like this works for me because it's not macho and tough, but it is hard and it is tough and it is rough.
Yeah. Because if you think about
it's music made by people that have experienced, homelessness. Maybe a choice, but, or, friends that have died because of drug overdose, like that. that comes with that territory. And like, and I think, you know, a lot of this stuff, there probably is like the political ideological aspect to it, where I think like a lot of tough guy stuff comes from that experiencing hardship and making it the world's problem in that antisocial way. And this kind of stuff comes from, I've experienced hardship and seen hardship in other people's lives, and it's the government's fault.
Yeah.
I have someone specific that I can blame, and I will oppose them instead of just being like, I'm just going to flail and, you know, hit whoever's next to me. You know, it's like, no, it's your landlord. It's your boss. It's the government.
It's the systems.
It's the people taking our money and bombing
brown people.
Shepherds.
Yeah. School children. It's not lost on me that we covered this record like the same week that all the Iran shit is going on.
Yeah, that's great. Great timing.
It was just kind of like, man, flat circle as hell, right? You know, it's just like, oh, we're repeating the exact same thing. This time, dumber. It's cool. It's really cool. Yeah, it was not lost on me. I'm reading lyrics about, like, you know, bombing Iraq, and then like, oh, yeah, we just did that last week to Iran. So, cool. Great timing. Yeah, lyrically, it's a lot of death and destruction. It's just like a very common theme throughout the whole record. And then like some songs that aren't necessarily explicitly about Bush and his wars, it's just general destruction. You could kind of just assume it's like it's inspired by, but it is also the genre. The genre just does love. It's a post-apocalyptic genre in a lot of ways too. Like there's a lot of just songs about that kind of thing. I
mean, you know, there's always Western imperialism, I guess, going on somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
You can just leave a couple of songs to be more general and they'll be applicable.
Yeah, like the song that one was explicitly very Bush war coded. The Final Goodbye is an interesting one because it talks about war from like a religious perspective, and like talks about and refers to like the Crusades, but you could tell based on like what else is going on in the record that they're talking about the religious rights rah-rahing of going into Afghanistan and Iraq and just basically, you know, terrorizing Muslims. And it's like hidden behind the context of like the Crusades and the religious, but it is about the war in Iraq, and that's what they are specifically singing about. There's what else do I have lyrically? I mean, there's a lot thematically. It's just generally dark and destruction. The Inner Beast is like a specifically anti-cop song. It's the ACAB song of the record, and yeah, and then Bloodlust is like this like post-apocalyptic wild dogs of the apocalypse kind of thing. Could be a metaphor for something else, but like if you could also read it straight ahead as like, no, literal dogs coming to get you. And then like In a Free Land is the name of that song. You don't really have to think about it too hard about what that's going to be about. But again, it's about war. So about half this record's about war, or what happened after war, or the cops who are doing the war on us at home. So it is 2003 as fuck. And I was thinking, like, just a few minutes ago, I was kind of thinking about like who was doing like hyper political stuff musically in 2003. We did have a lot of that. We joked about this is the Rock Against Bush era. And a lot of that stuff was explicitly political, but a good chunk of that feels very sloganeering, you know? Like, that feels like lib shit is what that felt like. I mean, I know at the time, like, the Democrats were in support of the war, and hey, look, a lot of Democrats are in support of this going on too. But it felt like the Rock Against Bush bands were more aligned with the Democratic Party, whereas like this record is like, nah, these are anarchists, these are socialists, these are like, we gotta tear the whole system down, people. You got a lot of that, I guess, in like the Discord DC scene at this time was super political too. And then you would have bands that would like, yeah, this is our political song on their records, but they wouldn't do, it wasn't like the theme of most of what they did.
Yeah, like they put a monkey in the White House.
Yeah.
I'm so sad.
Oh, I'm very sad. Yeah. I mean, that's like 10 years later, but still. It is that angle. Yeah. It's it's the thing we talk about now. It's like the Orange Man bad jokes that everybody, Cheeto president, haha, we're making fun of. It's like, how about we actually talk about something real instead of just being like, let's go after his appearance. It's like, yeah, there's an easy target, you know, Mango Mussolini over here. And it's like, yeah, they just blew up 80 children. Like, your Mango Mussolini jokes are not cutting it anymore, you know?
It's just,
how about we fucking do something, you know? And that's when I listen to this, and this ties into what Jason said. This is like pissed off times music. And it is. And it makes you want to do something music. You know, what does that mean exactly? I don't know. You know, it can mean different things for different people. It makes you want to do something. Maybe this is what I'm doing, just talking about it like this, you know, but it motivates you. It shows you that, like, no, there are so many people like this. There's so many people who do agree with you. It doesn't feel like it's the majority of people, but it is. There are so many people there who feel the same way you do. It's just, we're so spread out and we're not even connected to those people in our communities to know exactly who even agrees with us on that same scale and same level. Cause it's just funny. Cause I think about like how I feel politically versus like what your average Democrat you run into or that you know of as a Democrat. And it's kind of like, I'm over here thinking, we should abolish presidents. We don't need presidents anymore. Like, that's what I'm at. And they're just kind of like, we need another strong leader like Gavin Newsom.
I hope we can vote for somebody better in 4 years.
And I'm like, that's the problem. You're worried about what's happening in the next election instead of like, what are we doing between the elections?
We need a fuckable president. Come on. It's got to be good looking.
Oh, we got to get a hot president again. I don't think we should have left Afghanistan. It just turned into a Conor O'Malley character. I don't want to fuck this president. But yeah, like I listen to this record and it gets me motivated and it gets me angry. It gets me thinking. And I like that. We need this. You know, someone, I think it was Dr. Goodfriend Corey asked me one time, like, what do I listen to and what I like in lyrics? Because I talk about all the time how I'm not like a guy who's really super into like poetry style lyrics, you know, where it's just like, it's a lot metaphor, a lot of just like abstract. Like I prefer concrete lyrics and things along those lines. So this is very concrete. There's some abstractness to it, but like it's not buried, you know, it's like, you could tell kind of what it's talking about here. And like I told him, I was like, political lyrics or something that like really gets me going. Like, and I think it's because I think about politics and I think about what is happening in this country and all the time. I can't help but being forced to think about it due to social media, my literal job where I have to watch the news for work. Like, I am thinking about it all the time. So whenever I hear music that is thinking along the same lines I am, it is cathartic. It is something that is just like, oh, thank God there's other people out here feel the same way about this and are doing something. Even if it's just singing songs and writing songs about it, you know, that is doing something. That's a voice, you know, that is helping you see that there are other people out there like that. So yeah, I do like something like this. I really do really like this record. I just, it, on top of like the music itself just being fucking awesome. It just kicks so much ass, you know? Any tracks that stand out to you? I know you said it's like a very sameness, but is there anything in particular kind of jump out to you?
Not super specifically, but I would say it probably has its most impact at the beginning of the record.
Yeah.
You know, I think the first few songs are the strongest and kind of stand out the most, but I don't think it's like it runs out of steam or anything though. Like I got through this whole record very easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think, the first four are like the big standouts to me. The opener, Reaction, great opener. And then I love that Hell in the Darkness and those are two songs that bleed right into each other, so much to the point that it's like, is that the same song? They're actually two separate tracks, and that's the one where they each took turns singing the lead on it. I think Brad sings most of the record. I think he's the higher pitched screamer of the band, but you know, it does with the song, he does all of Hell in the Darkness, and then is all of John Wilkerson on the other vocals. He's the lower vocalist. And I like that, like, they each had it's like one song, but they each have their own part of the song. essentially. I think The Final Goodbye is probably the best, like, song on the whole record. I think it's the best written song. It's got a lot of dynamic, moving pieces to it. It's got a lot of thought into the lyrics on it. And I think The Mandate is like a really, really good track too at the end of the album. It's after the instrumental track, Black Granite. That may be the only song on here where I'm like, I don't know if we needed that to be its own thing. It's like a slow, clean guitar song. I mean, it offers you a break, and I guess it gives you something different on the record, but you do hear some of the other songs have like softer, clean tone, slower parts. So I don't know. It's the weakest song on the record to me because it's just an instrumental track. That's kind of why I feel like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think on its own, it's the easiest to single out as unnecessary, but I don't think it really drags the record down.
I don't either. No. I think the weakest part of the album is maybe the middle. Like On the Fray through the Inner Beast is probably the weakest to me. Those were the most samey to me. And then the three at the end I thought were pretty strong. The Mandate, Bloodlust, and In Free Land, and the first four. So yeah, like if I have to be critical, the middle's probably the weakest, but it doesn't detract that much. Like it's still, those are still solid songs. Does anything not work for you?
No, not really. It's a very like, it's just a very clean kind of in and out experience of listening to a record and getting what you want out of it. And it's like listening to like a Punch record. I'm like, I can't really tell you parts of a Punch song. You know, I can't single out anything specific about that band that I'm like, other than just generally it's awesome to listen to. Like, it's fast and there's good riffs, and like that kind of is it. Like, it really is all I need. It's probably not, and I guess that's like where maybe there's just, I guess the lasting impact, that is maybe that I said that listening to this record was a blur in a good way. And I guess like just the shadow of that, the downside to that is that maybe it just doesn't have the granular enough detail for me to latch on to and recall later. But I would still, I mean, maybe that would just come from familiarity if it's a record that I'd spent more time with. So I guess in that way, like, yeah, maybe that's the criticism of it, is that it's just, it doesn't insist on me coming back to it enough. And that's probably what most of those neo-crust bands have in common. For me, it's like, this is really cool when I hear it. I enjoy it. It's very satisfying. But I don't feel like I need to hear it that often.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's not a huge variety. But it's a genre that doesn't call for variety either, though. So, yeah. Well, let's do the aftermath. So, they would wind up breaking up in 2005 due to basically being burnt out. They toured nonstop, they played nonstop, and cranked out records in a pretty quick little succession there. And they were just like, we needed a break. So they do wind up reuniting in 2009. Billy Davis does not join them. He's still playing in Tragedy, so he's just a little too busy for From Ashes Rise. So they bring in Derek William of Remains of the Day to replace him. And then Brad Boatwright would go on to become a high-demand mastering engineer. You'll see his name on as many albums as you'll see Will Killingsworth. I do find it incredibly fascinating that the guy who came from a crust band and the guy who came from a screamo band are some of the most in-demand mastering engineers right now, because those are two genres that are not necessarily known for the highest recording qualities. And it is kind of funny that like they go to them specifically to get the records to sound good, and they do a good job because everything they master sounds really good. So it is just funny that like these lo-fi guys are the go-to guys now.
Yeah, I mean, mastering is evening out the dynamics and pushing a little bit of EQ.
Yeah,
just like being like, oh yeah, you mixed out all the high end. Here's a high shelf.
Yeah, it's more of just like the album as a whole. It kind of gets everything. It kind of gets all the tracks even with each other volume wise, so you don't have some songs that are just like blowing you out too, from song to song. It's like it's the last step in the process before you send it off to be shipped. And it's also like, I think it is like the cheaper step in the process too. I think paying someone to record and mix is like the more labor intensive and expensive portion. Cause I know they used to joke like Jamie King's fee was like $150. And it was like, oh, that's not that much money at all. And like he did 1 million records. Probably because he just puts it into the Jamie King mastering machine and it just presses one button and the whole record sounds exactly the same. But
Yeah, he's just dropping the same EQ curve on everything.
Every record has the same thing. You're paying for this. You're paying for this EQ. That's
Brick
what you're
wall
paying
limiter.
It's just a bar, solid bar waveform. And then, John Wilkerson also now plays in the band Amusement. So that band is chock full of people who have been in tons of other bands. So it's very cool that one of the guys from a crust band is doing like a melodic Husker Du Jawbreaker inspired band. But that is it. Did we win?
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, for sure. What do you want to rate it?
I think I'm like right at, I would say a 3.5.
I'm at like a 4. 4 solid. 4 solid. That's where I'm at. Great record. Really, that's a 4 out of 5. Great score for me. I think that's an excellent album. Very fun. Well, all right. I think that will do it. So we appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Jason, we appreciate you for sponsoring this episode. Like we said at the top, if you want to sponsor an episode, choose the album we do and a whole episode on, hit us up at that $10 tier. We'd love to do something. And yeah, you can follow us everywhere on social media at Punk Lotto Pod. Dylan, where are we following you?
You can find me at Husker Dylan and Major Awards Band. Nothing to promote.
All right. Yep, that'll be it. So we thank you. There may be a little, I don't know when, there might be a little gap in audio for a week due to Dylan being on vacation and me moving. If I have time to do something, I might do something, but no guarantees either. So if it's not next week, it'll be the week after. We skip a week, but like I said, in previous audio, we'll probably communicate what's going on, what the plan is. So, but that'll do it. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.